Welcome to the Explainer. Today, we're unpacking a massive and honestly pretty surprising strategic shift from one of the most ambitious aerospace companies on the planet. I mean, for over a decade, SpaceX has basically been synonymous with one single ultimate goal, right? Mars. It was the red planet or bust. But recently, well, that vision has taken a massive detour. We are tracking a complete realignment from a strict Mars-first timeline to a sudden intense prioritization of building a lunar city. It's a truly fascinating pivot, and it's being driven by a wild mix of orbital math, internet memes, and some seriously mounting geopolitical pressure.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here's our roadmap for today's Explainer. We'll start with the original Mars vision, take a quick detour into pop culture Moonbase Alpha, explore the Great Lunar Pivot, break down the Moon versus Mars math, and finish up with the Artemis space race.
Section 1. The original Mars vision. Now, to really grasp just how huge of a shift this is, we actually need to rewind a bit. Let's travel back to September 2017, specifically to the International Astronautical Congress in Adelaide, Australia. This was the exact moment Elon Musk laid out the grand, foundational vision for SpaceX's interplanetary future. At that Congress, the baseline expectations were set. And let me tell you, they were breathtakingly ambitious. SpaceX aimed to launch the very first pair of cargo missions to the Red Planet in 2022. And that was supposed to be followed by the first human crew missions in 2024. The goal here wasn't just planting a few flags and coming home. It was about laying down the actual physical infrastructure for a permanent colony. Looking back from where we sit today, those 2022 and 2024 dates really highlight just how aggressively optimistic SpaceX's initial timelines were. To actually pull that off, they knew they needed an entirely new class of vehicle. Back then, they called it the BFR, which is the direct precursor to what we all know today as Starship. And to give you a real sense of the sheer, mind-boggling scale of this proposed rocket, it was designed to lug 150 tons of payload into low Earth orbit, and that's in a fully reusable configuration, completely without any orbital refueling. Just to put that into perspective for you, the Falcon Heavy, which hadn't even flown yet at that point, could only handle about 30 tons. Just look at the mammoth specs they outlined for this beast of a machine. We're talking a 106-meter-long reusable vehicle with a 9-meter diameter, packing 31 Raptor engines and generating a massive 5,400 tons of liftoff thrust. It was essentially designed as a Falcon 9 second stage and a Dragon crew capsule mashed together, featuring a gigantic 8-story payload bay. The vision was that a crew of 80 to 100 people could actually fly and live comfortably inside this thing on their way to Mars. It was built to handle flying anywhere in the solar system, whether that meant a thick atmosphere, a thin atmosphere, or literally no atmosphere at all.
Section 2. Pop Culture Moonbase Alpha. Now, before we jump into the modern reality of all this space exploration, we're going to take a super fun, brief detour. We need to look back to the year 2010, because ironically enough, popular culture was kind of already predicting exactly where SpaceX would end up over a decade later. So 14 years ago, NASA actually released a video game. Yeah, a video game called Moonbase Alpha. The agency's original intention was highly educational. They wanted to create this incredibly realistic simulation of what it would actually be like to build and maintain a lunar colony right there on our natural satellite. It was supposed to be this very serious, grounded look at the future of human habitation in space. But, the internet, as it always does, had completely different plans. The game featured this text-to-speech chat function that would read out players' messages in that classic robotic Microsoft Sam voice. Well, within maybe 2 weeks of launch, this feature transformed the whole serious educational tool into a massive, hilarious, viral internet meme. Players quickly figured out how to manipulate the voice to sing songs and just spam absolute nonsense like John Madden, AIOU, and rapid-fire strings of brr, 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 brr. It is a legendary piece of internet history that honestly is still funny today. But the wild part? What started as a goofy gaming meme has unexpectedly become the very real focal point of modern aerospace. Section 3. The Great Lunar Pivot. And that brings us right up to the present day, 2026. This is the world where reality and pop culture have totally, ironically aligned. SpaceX's grand 2024 and 2026 Mars plans? Yeah, those have been completely shelved in favor of a new, highly immediate target. Which naturally raises the ultimate question, why? Seriously, after more than a decade of framing Mars as the central, overriding objective of the entire company, Why on Earth, or rather, why in space, would SpaceX suddenly abandon its 2026 Mars mission just to prioritize a lunar landing? And this brilliantly illustrates just how stark the strategic reversal we're witnessing really is. Let's look back at 2023. Elon Musk was pretty quick to dismiss lunar proposals, explicitly stating, "No, we are going straight to Mars. The moon is a distraction." But fast forward to 2026, and the tune has entirely changed. Completely changed. Musk now states, "The overriding priority is securing the future of civilization, and the moon is faster." This brings us straight to their newly defined objective, a self-growing city on the moon. Yep, SpaceX is now citing this as their #1 near-term priority. And the reasoning? It's purely based on timelines. Musk pointed out that a lunar city could potentially be achieved in less than 10 years, whereas establishing a similar settlement on Mars, that would take 20+ years. So the core goal hasn't fundamentally changed. It's still absolutely about creating an off-world civilization, but the destination has shifted to our closest celestial neighbor. What you should really take away from this is that in today's modern space race, speed and the ability to iterate are completely outranking those long-term planetary ideals. Right now, time is the ultimate currency. Section 4, Moon versus Mars Math. Let's move to and see how this builds. When you take a step back from the grand sci-fi visions and just look at the raw, cold physics of space travel, the logic behind this massive pivot becomes incredibly clear. So the crucial point is that it all comes down to orbital mechanics. If you want to go to Mars, you are entirely at the mercy of planetary alignment. Earth and Mars only align favorably for a launch every 26 months, and even when they do, you are looking at a brutal 6-month travel time. The Moon, on the other hand, that offers launch windows every 10 days, with a breezy travel time of just 2 days. As Musk pointed out, this means you can iterate, you can test, and you can build a moon city vastly faster than you ever could on Mars. And because of those complex logistics, plus the fact that SpaceX still has to demonstrate crucial bleeding-edge technologies like in-space propellant transfer, the Mars goalposts have continuously shifted over the years. Just tracing the timeline here, those 2022 and 2024 targets came and went. The highly anticipated 2026 mission was abandoned entirely. Now, the outlook is that if the upcoming lunar tests go well, SpaceX is projecting human Mars landings could maybe happen in 2029, though they openly admit 2031 is way more realistic. Section 5, the Artemis Space Race. But listen, orbital mechanics aren't the only force at play here, not even close. We also have to look at the intense external and geopolitical pressures that are actively reshaping SpaceX's priorities right this very minute. A massive, undeniably huge factor is this number, nearly $3 billion. That is the jaw-dropping value of the NASA contract SpaceX holds to develop the human landing system for the Artemis 3 mission. Their job is to create a highly specialized lunar lander variant of their Starship. Its purpose? To transport astronauts from lunar orbit all the way down to the surface, directly supporting U.S. government policy that mandates an official return to the moon. Now, with a contract that incredibly large comes mounting intense scrutiny. The Starship vehicle remains in early development, right? It hasn't yet completed a fully operational mission. Acting NASA Administrator Sean Duffy has publicly cited these timeline delays and indicated that NASA feels they are in a dead heat race against China. To keep the pressure squarely on SpaceX, Duffy has actually threatened to open up the Artemis 3 contract to allow other space companies to compete. And trust me, the competition is extremely eager to jump in. Jeff Bezos' Blue Origin has actively halted its suborbital space tourism program specifically so they can pivot their resources toward competing for these earlier moon landing missions. So all of this results in a wildly complex juggling act for SpaceX. They are now urgently targeting an uncrewed lunar landing demonstration for March 2027, and they're trying to pull this off while managing massive corporate shifts at the exact same time, including a planned $1.25 trillion enterprise valuation with xAI, alongside some truly staggering ambitions to launch 1 million satellites to act as orbital data centers. It's a lot. We are witnessing an absolutely unprecedented era of aerospace development. A company that built its entire identity, its whole brand, on reaching Mars has now firmly anchored its immediate future to the moon. It's a shift driven by undeniable math, massive federal contracts, and rising global competition, which really leaves us with one final, fascinating question to ponder. Is this lunar city, this real-life moon base alpha, destined to become humanity's ultimate off-world home? Or will it truly serve as just the necessary stepping stone to finally, eventually, reaching the red planet? It's a massive shift that will define the next decade of space exploration for sure. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and as always, stay curious.